Okay, welcome back for video 2. Video series 2. Last time we went and painted up Dalren here. And so next up, we're going to go ahead and look at Buford. Good old Buford Buddy Bates. Salt of the earth, Yomade Fearin farmer with, of course, a history of devotees in his family to Yomade. So he's going to kind of take up his family banner and kind of become the farmer paladin out to save his farm, as it is. We can kind of see, and here we can kind of see the danger of trying to spray paint models in Florida. We can see a little bit of texture here that's cropped up on this model. And that's a little bit of humidity that was still in the air when I painted these started to make that paint clump up. So thankfully I've managed to wear the worst of it down with a brush, so it should work out pretty fine and we shouldn't have too much of a problem with it. So I think we'll go ahead and just move on without having to worry about stripping this, because stripping models is a pain and I don't want to have to do it. Alright, so starting off here, we've got a few noticeable differences from Dalren. So first off, is the thing that stands out the most, aside from the very dashing cowboy hat, is that we've got this gigantic cuirass with pauldrons. And this thing is definitely plate. This is going to be steel. So we've got steel here, coming on down to with these nice big steel pauldrons. We've got some very clear gauntlets right here. He's got some greaves down here that probably even... No, it doesn't look like they go into full sabatons, but they go right over his boots, and of course he has some very... Go ahead and flip it around here. Some very stylish spurs right there, implying that his ancestors very well may have been cavaliers and not just ground-pounding paladins. In particular, so that's a lot of steel that we're going to have pop out. So that's going to really make this model look a lot different from Dalren. In particular, we've got the fact that we're going to be doing a bit more reds. You can actually see he's got these slit sleeves going on. So we're going to have we're going to have layers of color that are going to go in there. And actually, Bryn put up some concept work together for how Buford's going to look. So these are actually going to be red. So this undercoat is going to have a lot of red in it. So this here isn't a part of his... it's not a part of his cuirass. This is actually going to be his undercoat, kind of sticking out underneath it. Although, just kind of looking at it here in the back, it does seem to kind of blend in with the cuirass, but we're not going to do that. We're going to say that this cuirass is just going to be a breastplate and a backplate, and this skirt here is going to be the coat coming out from underneath as cuirass, his gambeson, as it were. And so that'll cover that. As for in here in these pants area, he's got some guards going over his thighs here. We can kind of see where the strapping is. So we've got some pants on the inside here. We might keep the same red color for that, but we'll see how it comes out. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started. In particular, I like starting with contrast paints because it really helps to break up the monotony of what we've got, just all this white. So I'm going to start with that, and we'll go ahead and hit that undercoat here. So I've got this Blood Angels red here. So this is a nice, vibrant red color. So let's go ahead and get some of this on the brush. And let's go ahead and start right here. So contrast paint, we don't have to thin it out. We just, right out of the pot, put it right on. And the nice thing about this being the first coat down is we don't really have to worry about any kind of oversplash so much, because we're just going to paint right over it. Which isn't to say I really want to start going nutso here, but Very pretty. All right, let's get that other arm. Let's see. This brilliant red combined with this very nice high quality steel cuirass makes me wonder that Buford's family, don't imagine they were always dirt farmers. I imagine that they must have come from some means. Perhaps the ancestor who owned this set of kit may have actually been quite well off. There we are. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit this right here. So keeping that red theme, the coat is going to be primarily red. And we'll pick the trim out in something else to make it stand out, but I think for now, I'll keep it that way. All right. So that's going to be his coat. His unders, we'll probably do something a bit more subdued. It's not very showy. It's not, you're going to see a lot of it, so it's going to be crammed up underneath a lot of armor. So probably like maybe a khaki for that. Plus, of course, we have to consider that delightful cowboy hat. I'm going to actually hold off on painting that hat, though, because my finger is going to be on the top of that, and I don't, unless I want to throw him on the handle right now, I'm going to want to be able to keep my finger on top of that hat. So I'm going to have to wait for this paint to dry before I start going nuts. So let's go ahead and try to get a khaki down here. So since it worked so well on Dalren, let's go ahead and pull the skeleton horde back out, because it made a really nice khaki. So let's go ahead and hope it does the same for Buford. So there we go. And that's going to be a plate, so we're not going to do that. These are knee cops that are going to be on his boots. So we're going to leave those. Let's see, that's more strapping going behind his knee there. So I'll leave that. I'll just hit the whole thing and go over it later with something a bit more striking. Pick that strap out. And we can actually see where the greave goes over his boot there. So we'll leave that. Alright. Alright, so that red is still a little wet, so I don't want to mess around with it just yet. I guess we'll go ahead and prep that badger. So I figure we'll paint this like an English badger, so black with a white stripe going down it. Might have to go get myself some references to go look at, but I think we'll make that looking just fine. But in the meantime, I am concerned about that hat. That is a pretty in the way hat. I'm gonna have to get a brush in here. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna hold off on that. Because I'm almost assuredly gonna have to clean it up before I start. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and go on to the yeah, let's go ahead and get a coat on that badger. Why not? So that out. And this will be pretty straightforward. Oh. You know what I just picked up? I just picked up a pot of... Where did it go? Where did it go? It's not still in my pocket. Black Templar. And in order to be able to use it, I'm going to need to dilute that black off of it. Huh. Funny thing, it actually doesn't look half bad. I guess it'll make it easier to clean it up if I just spread it out over the whole thing with this wet brush. Alright, good enough. I had a pot of Black Templar contrast paint that I just picked up today. And it's supposed to be a contrast paint that is able to paint black and still give you highlights, which is a very interesting idea. I've never actually tried it before. So I imagine I could use Buford's Badger as a guinea pig. Here it is. We'll see here. I have to let that dry. Oh, that's still a little dry. And I'll need to go over it with more white anyway, because this stuff probably covers really well. So I'm going to want to make sure I have a nice bright white undercoat. So that's what I'll do for him. All right, in the meantime, this red is kind of cleaning up nicely. So I'll go ahead, I'll hit the... Actually, let's take a peek at where this gap happens between the neck of the cuirass and the... You actually don't see much. You really don't see much popping out there. You actually don't really see anything like an undershirt pop out. You don't see anything like the collar of his gambeson pop out. And of course he's not wearing a gorget, because gorgets are, I don't know, you never see really anyone in fantasy wear gorgets. Gorget is a armor for your neck. So it's usually a collar. It could be something as simple as like a thick collar, or you could do it with plate. So you'd have two semicircles of plate that go buckle together to fit around your neck. Very handy, because if you get hit in your neck, you're basically done. So gorget is a real important piece of armor that is frequently overlooked, much as it is on this here. But, you know, he's not wearing a helmet. Instead, he's wearing a cowboy hat. So, I mean, I guess the lack of a gorget is pretty secondary here. Rule of cool, of course, takes precedence over other considerations. So, actually, then looking at that, I'm not going to worry about it. However, since I am going to have to get at his flesh, and his hat is going to be in the way, and his armor is going to be in the way, I'm going to have to do a lot of touching up. So let's go ahead and get his skin painted. So, looking at the concept art that Bryn's got, Buford, he's got a pretty dark complexion, which makes sense. He basically runs a farm, works outdoors a lot, but he's got sort of a ruddy quality to him. So I think this Bugman's Glow is actually going to be perfect for him. So we'll go ahead and do that. Let's see if you are... Oh, look at that. No reconstituting needed. Brilliant. Get back here. All right. A little bit of water, thin that out a bit. All right, let's get Buford's face painted here. So in addition to his very manly jawline, Buford has some rounded features that are very different from Dalryn. Dalryn, being an elf, he's basically all angles. From the very clear elven ears, but elves also have very thin faces. They've got a very pronounced jawline. They've got cheekbones for days. So elves do not have rounded features at all. Buford, on the other hand, he is a salt-of-the-earth, hard-working human. So his features are going to be a bit more rounded, as we see here. So that's also going to be different. And it's also particularly different is he has facial hair. So he's got these glorious mutton chops over here that are really quite impressive. They're really bushy. They stick way out. His coloring on those are going to be more of a darker brown. But for now, I'm just going to, if I hit them, that's okay because I can clean it up later. And there's just nothing around it. I'm going to have to kind of get some paint on the armor to make sure I get this neckline. But that's okay because we can just touch that right up. All right, now once again, we have this situation where he's cocked his head to one side, so 3D printers care not for your modeling concerns. For your painting concerns, I should say. They care very much for your modeling concerns. All right. It's got his flesh picked out pretty well. Got some. I'll just go ahead and just hit these things so I don't have a bunch of white staring at me. There we go. So once that dries, I can go ahead and hit the hair, and then I can go ahead and hit the clean the hat up, and then I'll be good to go. Geez, I'm probably gonna have to wait for that to dry too before I can get the armor still, because I've got these darn pauldrons in the way. So that's fine. We'll wait yet again, and let's go ahead and try to clean up the badger down here. So as we can see, it's kind of after my last-minute abort of a black base coat. I've gone and made it kind of this dingy thing. So let's go clean that up first. Now, badgers are not going to have any sharp lines on it, so we probably don't have to go straight, pure, blinding white here. Instead, I've got this stuff called Uthuan Gray, which is effectively designed to work well with contrasts. So let's see here. Of course, it's not very well constituted, it seems. Man, it's like chunky. It's not very good, is it? I guess let's go mix it up. We want to have some pretty good consistency here. Doesn't need a ton, but definitely going to need something in here. I don't want to paint with this. Get a big old chunk on somewhere, and it's just going to look awful. Yeah, I'm not feeling any resistance in here, which is really odd. I would think, with all those weird chunks in it, that I'd... Well, I mean, it's definitely chunky. Let's get you out of there. Alright, well... There's plenty in there that I can work with, so I'll just kind of be a bit mindful. Clean that off. Alright, so let's go ahead and... Oh man, it's like I'm having to like pick around cottage cheese curds or something. Ugh. Alright, at least the rest of it is pretty nice and thin, so I don't have to water it down. So let's go ahead and get this badger looking a bit more presentable here. Let's go into the pot. Seems to work a bit better down there. Alright. Looking way better already. And the nice thing about contrast paint on this badger here is that even if it winds up not having a perfect coverage because this undercoat doesn't work out well, it's okay because badgers are not, believe it or not, made out of marble. They are nice and furry, which means they do have a bit of texture to them. So that means that if it doesn't come to a perfect smooth coat, that's okay because badgers would have fur on them, and it should add some extra texture anyway. So pretty happy with that. I'll let that dry. Alright, so that skin has dried pretty nicely. So let's go ahead and get to that hair. So picked up a new pot, more than Fang Brown. You can actually hear it this time. Let's go open you up. There we go. Ah, brilliant. Look at that. A bounty. Veritable bounty of paint. All right. Just take some of that. Add some water. Palette. Alrighty, so we've got a chop over here. Got one right over here. There we go. He's got his eyebrows, which are really tucked up in there, and I'm not sure that I'm going to put the effort into trying to pick them out. I think I'm just going to make a mess if I try. So I'm going to pop back here. We'll get his hairline behind his hat. Get around his ear there. Gonna hit the hat a bit, but that's okay. And get around his ear right here. Buford's not quite going bald yet, so not gonna have to worry about that. There we are. Alright. Okay, good. Got his hair picked out. And that's going to need to dry for a little bit. Now let's see what else we got. That badger. Yeah, actually that dried out pretty quick. All right, good stuff. All right, so experiment time. Let's go ahead and try out this Black Templar contrast paint. All right, so here we go. You know, it actually almost looks like there's a bluish tint to it, which is interesting. All right, let's try this out and see what we get. Interesting. Yeah, it covers pretty well, but it's still fairly transparent. Interesting. Probably works better we have more sharp edges, like on a Space Marine power armor or something, but this actually isn't bad. We actually can still see the definition of the model, and yeah, no, that could work actually. I'll put some highlights on it and we'll see how it comes out later. And I might like it a bit better. So we'll see how that works. Okay. Okay, so looks like that's dried enough up there. We'll go ahead and hit that with a wash now. So, as much as you may have heard me bemoaning my lack of flesh wash, I went to the store today and picked up another pot of it. So this is Citadel's flesh wash. It wasn't the wash I was using before. I was using a bottle from Privateer Press, but this should work just fine. Exactly what I need. So, new paint pot sound. There we go. Okay. Yeah, a little dip of that. And I think we're going to go ahead, we'll hit his face, but we'll also hit his hair with it. And the reason I'm doing this, and why I'm doing this instead of with Devlin Mud, is because Devlin Mud has a more cool texture to it. It doesn't feel as warm or as alive as a flesh wash does. So flesh wash is actually useful for more than just hitting skin. But in this case, you can see it's actually working quite well to kind of give Buford that sun-touched but still ruddy complexion. But it basically works really well when you've got warm tones that you want to go and kind of keep warm but still shade them. So I actually wind up using flesh wash when I'm doing bronze a lot. I'll use flesh wash for that, and it works perfectly well. I really like it. Okay, perfect. So good step there. All right, so next up, I think we're ready to start painting. This red is completely dry. We're ready to start putting some metallic down. So I know we talked before about using this stuff. This is a nice dark base color. Gives you a nice dark oiled metallic look. And it might work well to start with this. After all, you do need to keep mild steel armor oiled. Otherwise, it quickly turns into rusty steel armor. Especially back in the day, stainless steel was not a thing that our medieval forebearers had. So it was all mild steel, which meant it would rust the minute you forgot to oil a bit of it. However, given that he is a hero of the party, we're going to start with this stuff. So this is kind of more of a mid-tone of that. So generally on the spectrum, we're going to have our lead belcher way over here. This is a darker metal color. We have our iron breaker, they call it now. They used to call it chainmail, but it's basically sort of like a middle, shiny kind of metal. And then we've got this stuff. This is our mithril silver. They call it something different now, but essentially what it is it's a really bright silver, and you can clearly see the progression here. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually start here. So we're going to go ahead and put that away. So we're going to start with this, and when we put a wash over it, it'll darken it up plenty. So we won't have to worry about starting with that lead belcher. Besides, I think Buford, he's a paladin. Should have some shiny armor, I think. So, once again, new paint pot sound. Alright, so let's see what we're working with here. We are working with something that needs to be stirred up. That's what that is. So let's go and do that. Yeah, it's not really It's a little clumped up. Not terrible. Not terrible at all, actually. I don't even have to add anything to this. I can just stir it as it is. There we go. There isn't even any clumps in that, so that'll do well. Okay. Stir stick goes away. Actual paintbrush comes out. Grab some of this. A little bit of water. Not too much. Don't want to crazy water this down. All right, so we'll start here. So let's go ahead and catch the knee cops. There we go. And judging from the texture here, it does look like we do have some greave built in that goes down over the front of his boot. So we're going to include that also. Keep that steel. Looks like it actually doesn't cover completely. It still kind of flares out a little bit there, which is interesting. Not sure if I like that or not. I might just paint over it. We'll see. Alright, and then over here we've got that section right there. There's still some wet skeleton horde in there, I see. Need to be careful of that. Clean my brush just in case I got any on it. Last thing I want is to have skeleton horde dripping inside my paint pot here. Alright. So, let's go hit this plate here. A little too watered down. Starting to lose coverage. Try that again. There we go. Very nice. Very nice indeed. Alright, good. So we'll get this one now. There we go. Oh, can't forget those spurs. Or maybe I should paint the boots first. I don't know. But I did miss a section of the greave here. I guess that kind of flows naturally into the spurs, so I may as well. Keep that point. It's still a little thicker than I'd like, but it'll get the job done. There we go. Okay. Alright, there we go. Same deal on the other one. Gotta get that strap around. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Badger. I'm gonna just squeeze past you somehow. Come on, yeah, in there. There we go. I have to paint in there again to get that boot brown, but there we go. All right, cool. Going back to the cuirass, that'll be nice and simple. Zoop, zoop, zoop. And we'll do that belt a different color. We might actually do a bronze trim or a gold trim on that. Because after all, this is Buford's ancestors' armor, right? So we can kind of go all out here. There we go. Get around that. All right. Yep, and we can see we can paint over that spilled over Blood Angels red practically effortlessly. Right. This hand is proving to be more complicated than I thought it was. It's got all these surfaces I gotta get. And again, this is our first coat, so we gotta kind of hack away at it. Make sure we're very meticulous, we don't miss anything, we get everything perfect, and then the fun stuff happens later when we're able to ink and we're able to highlight. We're able to do all that. So we got to get through our tedious base coat first. Alright. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be sticking out under there. That's steel, but I'm just going to go ahead and paint it like that anyway. You can kind of see the side straps there. We can go back and hit those. There we go. There we go. And because this is a fantasy miniature, we just have that cuirass basically just going right up against his skin, which I'm sure is very comfortable. But Buford is a hero, and it does not bother him one whit. Ugh, messed that up. Have to fix it. Now, thankfully, I can avoid the issue I ran into with Dalren earlier, where I had to patch something. I patched it this brilliant white I've got right over here. And the skeleton horde was way paler on it. So if I use Ulthuan Gray, that looks to be pretty close approximation of the base coat, I should be able to patch that up and not run into too many terrible difficulties here. There we go, patch that. Clean that, that goes in there. Looks pretty good to me. Going a lot of chainmail on him because, well, he's wearing a lot of steel. Whoops. Go on the hat there. There we go. All right. Oof. Getting a little tricky to get in all over here. Probably going to have to give in and use that painting handle pretty soon. Just kind of clutters up the frame a bit, so I've been trying to leave it off as much as I can. But necessity will dictate I need it pretty soon. Oh, back of the gauntlet. Patch that up there. Perfect. Alright. Not bad, not bad. Okay, so I think I'm about to need to start paying attention to that hat. So let's go ahead and break out that paint handle. Alright, here we go. Now then, let's clean that hat up. What did I do with that old one? There it is. So again, with care taken to not get too much chunky bits out of this. Let's go and clean this up. It's actually almost like a perfect match for the spray paint. Very handy, that. Oh, don't tell me those are eyebrows he's got in there. You've got to be kidding me. Okay, I guess we'll go get him. Maybe I'll go get him. Get out of there, you. Alright, and pretty sure I cleaned that metal up, but just in case I didn't, I'll go over that area again. Can't even see us there. Alright, so that's pretty patched up. Now, Bryn has this hat in a light tan, it looks like. So, light tan hat. Got a few options. Probably the most simple one, at least to get started with, is going to be to go back to our good old friend, Mr. Skeleton Horde. Get it going. It'll be good shading on the base, and I can pick out the edges to make them pop up a little bit later on. Let me just see if I have a khaki back there, but in all honesty, I think Skeleton Horde is going to be perfectly fine. Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good. All right. Okay. Let's get that hat. Yeah, so these sharp edges here, it barely covers at all. And these recesses, it really sinks in. Skeletons are probably exactly what contrast paint was designed for. You've got all these raised high areas and all of these recesses literally all over the model. All right, let's get you in there. Geez, that looks actually pretty good. I don't think this thing would be so useful. I might want to darken that a little bit more, actually. We'll see what it looks like when it dries. I'm actually having second thoughts about the pants, too. I might have to darken that up, too. Let's go ahead and see what we got here. So, the crash should be about dry by now. Let me get those boots done while I'm thinking about it. Because I'm going to need to start throwing some wash around, and I am going to really need to make sure those boots are done. Because trying to selectively ink wash around a white area sounds like something of a nightmare. And painting is supposed to be fun. So we'll go ahead and make sure we don't sabotage ourselves, nor our enjoyment. I get to fill in all these little areas that I was just so excited to paint around when I was painting those spurs. And now I have to paint around them. It's my own darn fault. It's very Margaritaville of me, I guess. That's alright, I'll just kind of use the base as my little error correcting wall there. There we go. Now, looking at this, something interesting that I've noticed is that Bryn is the only character who decided not to go and decorate the base at all. So Bryn has just a plain old flat base there, which means it's up to me to figure out what I want on it. Maybe standing in grass or farmland, or maybe on the side of a road. I like that one. Country road kind of thing. Maybe gravel. Part gravel, part grass. That could work out. Imagining Buford singing Country Road, Take Me Home. To the place I belong, Breach Hill Farmhouse. Too much time singing, not enough time paying attention to where I'm painting. That's fine, I'll patch it up. Alright, more importantly, I got those boots done. Okay. So, let's go and shade that armor. So, there's a few different things out there. There's stuff which I have used all up called Armor Wash. That's made from Privateer Press again. Armor Wash is very good, but it is very, very heavy in its coverage. So you have to be very selective on where you use it. But where you do use it, it works like a charm. Unfortunately, I am all out of that stuff. So instead what I've got is I have the replacement, is essentially what my game store carries. They carry the Citadel line, and they just got some of the Reaper line in. So they've got this stuff, Nuln Oil. So Nuln Oil is basically a metallic shade designed to give you that oily look. And I don't recall how... Does that cover well? It's probably pretty respectable, actually. So I'm just going to be a little careful. So we've got these flutes or striations in the armor, so I'm going to hit them and kind of leave the rest of it alone. I don't want to just wash this whole thing, because I can actually make it look dingy if I do that. I just want these recesses to have a nice shade in them. You get these big, wide, flat areas, you got to be careful because the ink will tend to pool. And when it pools, it looks bad. It looks like, he's just sloshing grease around and his armor's all greasy. We can get away with that on these smaller surfaces like the vambraces and whatnot. Especially going to want to do that on the palm of his hand. Technically, I suppose the palm of his hand should be a glove and not be steel, but we're not going to worry about that. There we go. And now we've got his shoulder. Get that pauldron there. Good. Very good. A little heavy, but let's see if I can't draw it out more. Good stuff. And we'll go along the top here without knocking over the pot of shade. That's a cry moment. Brand new pot of shade. It's a tall pot too, so there's a lot of it. And you knock it over. It's even worse when you do it with contrast paint. Because that stuff, in addition to going everywhere and having a lot in the pot, is also kind of expensive. There we go. Nice. Getting some nice depth there. So I'm going to hit up here on the top. The edge of the pauldrons here. And here, again, more recesses that we want to go and pick out. Back is fairly void of detail there, but I am going to put some along the bottom here, where his belt is. Yeah, just leave that as it is, I guess. Alright. So I'll go down here, hit those greaves. Knee cups. And in the case of the greaves down here on his boots, I'll get those too. Oh, looks like I may have missed a bit of brown in there, and certainly want to hit the spurs with a nice heavy one because spurs got a lot of texture on them, and we want that texture to pop. Oh boy. Right in there. There we go. All right. Nice. Get some good definition on that armor. So it's going to pop out really nicely. Now I have gone and really kind of went the wrong way on some of this stuff. on those greaves, so let's go patch that. Take some of that. Just get right in there. There we go. And back down here, we just need to clean that up a little bit. There we go. Touch up the spur. A little bit there. A little bit there on the back end. And rest that looks okay. I just need to get some brown in there now, and that was the spot I missed. So, a bit of that. Here we go. Now I'll catch the back of his boot right there. He's going to be doing this little cross your ankles do-si-do step thing he's got going on right now. Alright. So, let me let that dry. So we're going to need to go ahead and talk about what we want to do for, let's see, that still looks wet. That's still wet. This I just put down. That's still wet down there. I guess I can do the trim of the coat there. So, Bryn's idea for that was sort of a... it's kind of a grayish green tint thing. I got anything like that? I should have something like that. Let me see. Yeah, it's definitely really gray though. I guess I got this thrall flesh here. Let me think on that. Let's see. So we're going to be doing brown on the belt. We're going to be So if we're going to be doing brown on the belt with sort of that warm color thing, we want to keep this to something cool. Oop, I apparently have some junk still on this. Blue's pretty cool. That'd probably pop a bit too much though for such a... You don't see it anywhere else on the model. It's just there, and it's not an important part of the model. So I don't want to draw too much attention to it, but at the same time, I kind of want it to kind of jump out. It's a puzzle. I'm not sure what I'm going to do for that. Green? There's no green anywhere else on the model. Yet. There's no green on the model yet. I could add some green. That could be pretty cool. maybe, so these slitted sleeves, typically the way that you see these work is they're not just puffs, they're slashes in the fabric, revealing a different colored fabric underneath it. So the recesses here could be painted a different color. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that could work. So whatever the recesses are, I paint the trim the same color. Let's try that. So if we're going to talk about green, green's a good contrast with red, so it would stand out well as a border. Or we could go keep the cool thing going, and I think I like red and blue. They go well together. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do red and blue. And let me see, I thought I had some blue ink. What have I got? What have I got? What are you? You are green ink. Ah. Get back here, you. Yeah, here we go. So, Privateer Press makes this stuff. This is blue ink. And this stuff, unlike your shader, this stuff covers like you would not believe. And it also is not... Judging from the looks of it, you might see that there is something missing there. Namely, there is no dropper spout on this. So I'm going to have to be a little careful on how I handle this. So what I'm going to do... So where actually is the fluid line in here? Here's something in there. Probably the spout that fell into it. All right, well, let's just go and pour. That's probably enough. So this is a really rich color, very deep blue. And this has some insane amounts of coverage. So you do not want to paint this thing anywhere that you do not want it to just be this very vibrant, deep blue. So put you back on. It's not going to hold too well because it's designed to have a dropper top on there, and it's not there. So I'm going to put that over there for now. All right, so let's go get some of this, and I'm going to just have to be very considerate and careful. And you can see it just obliterates that red. It's like it wasn't ever even there. Which means if you try to handle this thing like that flesh wash, or if you try to handle this thing like Devlin mud, you are going to just have a blue model, and that is all it's going to be. And you're also going to have a blue model painter because you will have erased a lot of work. And stuff flows very strongly. So I have to be very careful when I apply it so it doesn't start doing this thing right here. Try to sop some of the excess up. Put it back where I want it. But ultimately, I'd much rather let it dry and then put more over it if I have to. All right, let's get this other one here. There we go. There we go. Cool. Now for you. And now for you. was a little much. Go try to sop that up and clear that off as much as possible. Slurp, 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 slurp. Oh boy, don't make it worse now. There we go. I might have to touch that up. I'm definitely gonna have to touch that up. All right. So last one. All right, that's not too bad. Oh boy. Oh, and right there you can kind of see the dangers. Oof. 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 Oh boy. It's all right. We can fix that. It's like a no, 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 no. All right, let's see if I have any hope of fixing that and getting the blue wreck where I want it. Oh man, it just wants to flow right in that recess now. That's fine. Let it dry. Let it dry. Come back later. All right, so we got that almost navy kind of blue thing going on there. So now what I can do is I can go on down to this thing, the trim on the coat, and I can go ahead and actually start putting a blue thing on it. I'm probably just going to go build that up. It's a highlight there, so I'm not going to want to mess with trying to get ink to work, and not going to really think contrast is going to be too helpful. So we'll just go ahead and start doing our typical build up. Start with just the base of this standard blue here. And it's actually a little light to start with because this is a very deep blue. I need something to be a bit more, I wonder, just out of curiosity, let's see if I can get this to work. So I'll take some of this ink I got here, grab some of you, deep color, mix it with the paint. Oh, that deepens it a bit. Grab, grab, grab. Over here you go. Grab, 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 grab. Mix it some more. Grab, 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 grab. Mix it some more. There we go. It's actually deepened out pretty nicely. All right, let's try that. So yeah, so we can see it's actually a little pale because it's got that ink quality to it because I've been mixing it with more actual coverage type paint. Let's see if I can split the difference here. Oops. So the coverage is pretty good. Don't know that I like the color though. I think I'm gonna have to go with more of a violet earn indigo. So I've got this stuff. This is night sky indigo. That might do. What else have I got? Got a contrast here. This is called Shyish Purple. It covers really heavily. And I've got this stuff here. This is a nice solid purple. let's try this. Let's try this indigo. Although I should probably wait for that to dry first. All right, well, while waiting for that to dry, we'll go ahead and I guess I can try to get that darn eyebrow that's winking at me now. I can't even see both of them. I can only see the one. Mildly frustrating. All right, let's get your fancy eyebrow. There we go. There we go. Okay, so it doesn't bother me anymore when I look at it. Since I got the brown out, I guess I'll hit that belt. And let's see here. Okay, back we go, and working back on Buford. So, when last we left, we actually had some decent success on getting this piping on his sleeves looking good, and then some less than decent success over here where that ink kind of betrayed us a little bit and bled over onto us. So we're going to have to go ahead and clean up some of that. Thankfully, though, it didn't really spoil any of our shading too badly, so we should be in a pretty decent situation to be able to clean that up. So we'll go ahead, pull back out our iron breaker, or your, chain mail if you want to be old school about it. And let's go ahead and get this behaving. Alright, so let's clean that up a bit. Very good. Very good. Oof, that underside. Let's see. Touch up there, touch up there. And right in here. Yeah, shading took a little bit of a beating in there, but we can probably leave it alone. Up. Yep, I see on the crease there. We probably gonna have to go and re-ink that. There we go. All right, for the most part though, that was pretty painless. I was actually not as desperate as I was afraid it was going to turn into. Alright, cool. So I'm going to wait for that to dry. In the meantime, let's go ahead and get that belt, because that belt is bothering me, sitting there, just base coated there. Not even base coated. So, let's see. Hard to go wrong with brown as a base for a leather belt, so we'll go ahead and get some of this back out here. More of this Mornfang here. This ubiquitous brown that I use so often I apparently run out of it without realizing. Alright, so there we go. Just get in there a little bit. Okay, cool, that worked out. And that buckle we'll probably do something with, and we can actually see that the belt is studded. So we'll have to decide how we want to handle that. We could try to do like a steel studding on it, or what we could do is we could just say, heck with it, it's a leather belt, we'll detail it with leather studding, which is really just going to be mostly ornamental, but it'll be a good thing that we can go ahead and highlight on, so that belt has better texture than just, no texture, which is fine. Even if it was a flat belt, we could do similarly to what we did on Dalren and just put a highlight line running down it, and it would look just fine. But now, and we might do that anyway, actually. But now we actually have some other bits of texture to play with on that. Alrighty, now just a little bit in there. Well, a little bit of bleed over right there on that gauntlet. Let's go ahead and patch that. I think I'm done with the... Oh, that boot line is a little jagged, isn't it? Let's go and patch that up. Okay, that's not too terrible. And of course, since we've got a big old belt buckle on him, well, maybe. We'll see where that goes. But in the meantime, we'll need, of course, to paint that belt buckle up. So let's go and get some of this bronze. Just a little bit of water. Again, don't want to water it down too much. It is a metallic paint, and it will complain if we water it down too much, meaning it'll start being transparent. There we go. Alright, so I see that the blue trim here didn't exactly come out great. That's right, I was going to swap that out for indigo, wasn't I? So let's go ahead and do that and see if that winds up looking a bit better. So, yeah, this indigo is, it's a little bit, it's really kind of more like a, it's really more of a purple. If you can kind of see it focus in on that there, is it, actually, I just wonder what it would be like to compare it to this purple I've got here. It's not really the deep blue that I was thinking it was going to be. It's actually kind of more of a grayish purple. So if I compare that to this, yeah, this is more rich. It's darker and more rich, but it's also incredibly noticeably purple. So, well, let's give the indigo a shot. Let's give it a shot, and if I need to kind of deepen it, what I might be able to get away with is I might be able to get away with very carefully putting that blue ink over the edge there and hoping beyond hope that it doesn't run into the recesses and make an absolute mess of things. There we go. That's not too bad. Let me actually get the inside trim here. And we're kind of seeing an interesting little phenomenon that you get with models, whether they're cast or 3D printed, is you get these weird sort of inseams in here. Because obviously you can't mold what's like underneath the flap of a cloak. You'd never be able to get the casting right. Similarly with 3D printing, the structure has to support itself. So you can get these overhangs under here. You just wind up with a bit more depth than you really would make sense to be there, but it's not a big deal. I'll just go ahead and just kind of paint it the shadowy type color that we can get out of it, and it'll look just fine. I do like the little details you get from these 3D printed models, how that little tiny leg plate just peeking out underneath his coat. It's just a really nice touch. A lot of cast models, you wouldn't necessarily get that little thing, especially if you're not talking with like a high quality one where they're basically practically 3D printing it in a computer before they cast it. So it's really nice. And actually, the more I look at this, I really like the way that this indigo purple kind of thing kind of meshes nicely with this. I might actually just kind of re-go over the piping with this indigo color, and then that way I can get a bit more uniformity in them. I actually really do like that the more I think about it. It's a little bit more work, but it's kind of just part of the little journey of exploration we're doing here. And in fact, I could just go down the center, leave the blue ink portions on the edges there, and it kind of adds a nice little shading dimension to it. There we go. Ah, very nice. Going back to talk on brushes again, would not be possible if I didn't have a tip that was this fine. So if I was trying to use a brush that was kind of like a makeup brush or something with a bit of a bristly point on it, I would not be able to make these little things fit the brush head in these little flat areas. Alright, so we're just going to go zoom, zoom, zoom. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to leave that. Alright. Try to sharpen that a bit more. Not that I don't trust myself, but that one's a bit more narrow. There we go. Perfect. Oof. Alright, here we go. Almost. Almost. There we go. Got it. Last one. Okay. There we go. There we go. Okay, very nice. I like that a lot better. Touch up there. And spot there. Let's see how else. Okay. All right. Nice. Very nice. Okay. So, looks like we've got a pretty good thing going here. Alright, so let's do some accents. So, getting into the fun stuff. We've done most of the drudge work here. So let's pop up to the top. We'll start with the hat. So, that hat has a band on it. And the skeleton horde, as good as it is, has not done a good job of picking that out. So, I'm going to see if I can't do better. I think our good old friend Scrag Brown will give a nice contrast, but kind of keep the tone. So, probably way more paint than I need right there, but that's fine. Just water it down a little bit, because we're going to be needing to do some pretty precise applications here. Oh boy. Might have to patch a little bit. Oh man, the crease on that hat. What have I got myself into? There we go. Whew. Why did I think this was a good idea? Not enough places to put my fingers. Try to get that point a little bit thinner. Oh, dang it. Agony in the ecstasy. It's alright. It's alright. Better to have gone for it and messed it up. Let's see if we get lucky. Oh, maybe. Ha 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 ha. Yes, wet brush. A wet brush in time saves the messy paint stroke. Ha! Tricks of the trade. Really, tricks of the painter whose hand occasionally trembles more than he'd like it to. Wouldn't be a problem if I didn't try to bite off more than I could chew like I did with that hat brim there, but glad I tried. Looks good. Yeah, as for the rest of this hat, that's actually... I was planning on having to highlight that, but I think the shadows and the highlights are extreme enough that the contrast paint did a pretty spot-on job there. I could even take this all the way up to white, but it's almost practically there already. I don't think I have to really do anything new on that, so good stuff. Oh, got a little bit of chainmail on the sleeve there. Let me go patch that. So that is unfortunately a contrast red. So I'm going to need to take it down to the base coat. And thankfully we have discovered through meticulous trial and error that Uthen Gray is the closest I'm going to be able to get to the spray paint I put on that. So we'll just go... let that dry. Got a little bit in there. Since I've got this out, anywhere else I have to patch? Yeah, a little bit over there. And a little bit down here that no one would ever see, except I'm a little OCD, so I'm going to go handle it. Alright. Now, let's go to... let's get his face a bit. So we're going to go back to our good old friend elf flesh here. And similarly with Dalren, we're starting with a bit more of a slightly lighter and also definitely a more ruddy type of complexion. However, we're going to use the same color to highlight. And like Dalren also, we're going to highlight in a almost like a stage makeup fashion. So we're just going to kind of coarsely pick out where the prominent features are. So unlike Dalren, Buford here has a lot of rounder features, likely due to his human background. So he's got these nice round cheeks. He's got that big nose, broad square jaw. Those cheekbones over here. And he's smiling, so let's just try to pick his smile out. And again, that's all about your brush control tip right there. So this is, like I said, this is going to be like stage makeup, so it's going to be pretty exaggerated. The reason being that it looks pretty garish up close, but when we get far enough away, we want to be able to see his face. So as a test, right there, that's not bad. I think that's pretty good. If Bryn complains, I guess I can tone it down. Oh, ears. He does have ears. They're not elfy ears, but he does have ears. We'll want to go pick those out. Back up we go. Alright. Mustn't forget the ears. Even though he's not an elf, he still has ears. Start this with that. And, well, I know he has an ear in there somewhere, but I can think of no way that it is to my advantage to go digging for it. So I'm not gonna. I'm gonna leave it. Similarly, he's got those very manly mutton chops that we're gonna want to pick out. And we can pick that out. Now, I would pick it out with this. That would be a pretty straightforward keep the tone brown, but I'm going to be using this for the leather, so I don't want his hair to have the same coloring as the leather. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and break out, let's go right to maybe this, maybe take it to that. I like the idea of his facial hair being a little sun-touched, because he does work outside a lot. Oh, I had a really good... Oh, here we go. Here we go. Let's try this out. So this is Heartfire, Privateer Press line. And really what this is... Whew. Get that out of there. It is a super fiery orange. Like, it is really bright and really garish. Which means that if you wanted to paint something straight up with this, it would look ridiculous. But as an accent or a highlight, it's actually going to be pretty good. So let's see if I can pull this off here. So he's got a lock of hair there, a lock of hair there, a lock of hair there. And over here, on that damn side he's got his head cocked to. He's got one right there. Oop, paint's not flowing very well. It's a little bit of water, a little bit more paint. There we go. It's not the time to have to go and try to work paint out of your brush. There we go. So a bit of sun touched in his hair. Now he does have some hair under his hat there. But once again, it's going to essentially entirely be in shadow. So trying to pick out highlights on it isn't going to be very helpful. So I'm just not going to do that. So I'm going to go call that pretty good. Although since I'm right up in here, I might as well get his eyes. So, being a human, Buford actually has some very nice eyes, complete with sclera, also known as the whites, which means I can probably, let's see. A little garish, but not too bad. This really high intensity white right here is actually pretty intense, but not the point. The point is to be able to see his eyes, even in the shadow of his hat, from a decent ways away, and I think we can kind of get that right there. So, I think that's pretty good. Now, actually, painting some eyeballs in him is going to be pretty challenging, but we'll see. We'll see if I can do it. Those patches are almost assuredly good by now, so let's go repatch up his sleeves. Again, pulling out our contrast Blood Angels red here. And like typical contrast, we're not going to water this down at all. We're just going to take it right out of the pot. Just be very careful. We want to get even though we're patching up only a portion of that sleeve, we want to hit the whole thing because you want to make sure we have an even finish over all of it. An unlikely spot that I almost forgot was there because of how tiny it was. And right there. It's a little intense. Let's see if I can. I know there's a notch in that gauntlet there, but let me just try to sop some of that up there. There we go. All right. Okay, didn't forget anything. Okay, so we're good there, we're good there. Let's go highlight this armor. So, Buford's armor we've already got as a that nice bright chainmail, or what do they call it now? Rune Fang? Oh no, Ironbreaker. They call it Ironbreaker. So we've got that nice bright thing. We've already shaded the sections of it with Nuln Oil to get this nice shading on the pauldrons here and in the lines. Got to patch it in up here where we spilled some blue onto it, but we can do that. That's fine. And now, though, it's time to go ahead and highlight this stuff. And we're going to highlight it with this stuff. This is Mithril Silver. It's basically the purest, brightest silver you can get. And it's very, very pretty. It makes for a great highlight. Now, it's not too terribly different from your typical chainmail. So what that means is that we can actually be pretty broad with this. We don't have to be nearly as precise as we were with, say, some of the highlighting on the leather or something like that from Dalaran. So we can actually be pretty, just hit entire areas. So for example, the shoulder pauldrons, we're just going to hit the entire outside here. There's this entire outside edge. There we go. And let's do the same thing on the other one. Zoop. There we go. Yeah, highlighting is just so much more fun than getting base colors down. So much more fun. Missed a spot. Of course, how am I going to get my brush in there to clean it up? That's how, right like that. Okay, so let's pop down to the gauntlets here. Water this down a little bit more here. Alright, so gauntlet-wise, what we're going to do is we don't have that nice, pretty raised area, so we're just going to put a straight edge highlight right along the top. And then we're going to do the same thing on the bottom of that plate. So you see where the light effectively catches the edges of that steel. And then for the articulations further down the hand, we just hit the raised edge right here. That was a bit too broad, but not too terrible. I'll just follow it around back just for completion's sake. This parson back here, same deal. We're going to go ahead and brighten that up. Same deal there, brighten that up. Really let that light shine off of it. And the last thing is, can't really see it, but I'm going to go ahead and just put a highlight right there, right along his fist there. So you kind of get that nice, little clumsy, but you get that ripple effect of light shadow, light shadow, light shadow. So it really kind of adds more of an illusion of depth to the whole thing. Other gauntlet now. First off, this outer rim, same deal. This is kind of cool because we can finish patching up that blue ink with the highlight. And kill two birds with one stone. So you don't have to kind of obsessively, compulsively just agonize over getting every little thing perfect. Because when you're about to go put a highlight in, if it covers in any meaningful way, it kind of cleans it up for you. Nice. So, got a little bit too much paint on my brush now, so let's clean that out. So, one thing you want to watch out for as you use your brushes is if you want to make sure you don't get paint caking up at the base of your brush here. So you can kind of see there's a little bit forming there already. I'd ideally like to try to clean that off with my fingernail if at all possible. And we do not want to let it dry there because that is essentially death for your brush. So I may have heard me tell earlier that you want to get a paint to flow off your brush, you need to make sure that you have clear bristles toward the base of your brush because that's where the air gets in to flow the paint off the brush as you paint with it. So if this gets clogged up, then essentially that basically means that you're painting with a progressively shorter and shorter brush. And let me see if I can actually have an example here, or if I have thrown all of them away. Maybe, no. Really hope I had a really good don't do this example. Alright, looks like I threw all those away. So, but just take my word for it. You want to make sure that you don't ever let paint dry this close up to your brush here. Alright, well fine. There, you can see it now. Camera focusing. Alright, so, back for more silver. A little bit of water. Alright. So we got the rim of the top of the gauntlet there. So now let's go for the inner edge. Clean that cutout there. And just go underneath. Just go underneath. There we go. And now ring number 2. Right there. There we go. All right. And to the back of his hand here. The first shot to really kind of be able to get at it, since he's folding his fist into his hips. On the other side, be able to get that plate. And now, if this were actual gauntlets, he wouldn't just have a completely steel palm like that. He'd be having this would be a leather glove, and these plates would be riveted onto it. And maybe he'd have articulations over each finger, or he'd have like a mitten kind of thing. But this being Fantasyland, of course his gauntlets are metal all the way through. So we'll just go ahead and highlight his fingers. And put a little highlight on the edge of his palm here. Kind of make that pop out. Okay. Good stuff. Let's go on to that cuirass. So the cuirass has a lot of flat spaces. So not a lot we can go too crazy with. However, we do have, it's a little hard to see, but we do have this line going down the center. So let's go ahead and pick that out. And it just goes right up the middle here. And then, of course, we can pick out the edges of this plate here on the bottom, and do top and bottom, and that'll make that seem to pop a little bit better. And then as for this, we can just kind of go up the edges on the top of those chevrons. There's a little bit of a raised area here around his neck. We'll pick that out too, so that the edges of the plate become very obvious. Now getting to his back, kind of looks like the 3D modelers kind of ran out of ideas back here, so we can keep that collar going. And as for back here, we really don't have too much we can do, so we can just kind of put a line around the arms. That's about it. So we'll leave that. Since we're back here, though, I see he's got his trademark spurs. So let's go ahead and get those. them stand out. There we go. And just hitting the edges there. I'm probably going to leave the rest of this pretty, a little touch up there, but I'll leave his stuff go around his boots. Those straps, they're pretty good, but the greaves are going to need to be picked out now. So I'll start with those knee cops, and again, nice shiny layer on the top edge where that light is going to hit it. And the rest of this, they've got that ridge going down the middle, so I'll pick that out to pick out the edge of the plate. As for the greave itself, I'm just going to hit the edges of it. There's no real creasing going down the middle of it, so just the edges are all we're going to worry about. It's not like we've got any kind of Maximilian style fluting or anything going on, so it's pretty straightforward and basic. Pop over to this other leg here. Kind of where the armor overlaps. It's a little tricky, so we've only got so much room there. If I can get that plate there over his thigh. And same deal over here. Alright, great. That's our metallics. Perfect. Alrighty, so let's go ahead. Well, of course, we've got that belt buckle. Can't just leave that a plain old coppery thing. We gotta go make that thing pop a little bit. Take a bit of gold here. We'll just, there we go. There. Nice and shiny. Still have two minds of what to do about these studs here. Wonder how they'd look if we did them in gold too. If that would be a bit too garish, or just be kind of like he's got these. This is like his fancy belt. This is his belt he wears to special occasions. Yeah, you know, that's actually looking pretty good right there. Yeah, I like that. Yes, this is Buford's special. Oh boy. I got a little excited. Gleefully chuckling to myself about Buford's top level belt. Oh, it's fine, I'll patch that up. Alrighty. Yep. He's gonna have these nice shiny brass studs on his belt. Just gonna go around like that. He strides into town like that, catches everyone's eye. Everyone thinks just how amazing he looks. I have to make sure I clean that up there. Alrighty. It's pretty good. And let's see, let that dry all the way. Wouldn't mind putting a. Still though, I'd like to put like at least a highlight along the bottom there, probably in Scrag. So I'll do that. Gotta wait for it to dry first. However, there are other strappings that I can hit in the meantime, so let's go hit those. So, we'll get our Scrag out here. A palette. A little bit of water. Maybe not that much. Mix some extra paint in there. Okay. So, we've got these straps on the inside here, holding his greave plates on. Yeah, there's way too much water on that. Let's blot some of that out. Pick some up here. There we go. Thinning your paints is good, but not so thin it starts to lose coverage. There we go. Should have some matching ones on the back here. Yes, indeed we do. Same deal, strap behind his legs, holding his knee cops up in place. A little bit right there. It got a little out of control, but let's see if I can use my same old... There we go. Such a crutch, but it works. Alright. Good stuff there. Oh. This got colored boot color somehow. Okay, now back here we've got some strapping on his breastplate, both on the sides here, which we can go ahead and hit. Because believe it or not, Buford's cuirass would not in fact be riveted onto his body. Gotta tie those on with leather strips. Probably buckle into place. Go. And same deal with those pauldrons. And yep, you can kind of make it out right there. You've got more strapping, and that's probably going to be where his pauldrons connect to the cuirass. So, oh boy, come on, we can do this. Oh, see, I messed up a little bit already, but that's alright, we can patch it. Cool. And, oh gosh, that darn pose. That's alright though, we can make an effort. That's not impossible, I can get it. There we go. Alrighty. So we've got a patch up around there. We've got a patch up back here, but that looks okay, and that looks okay. Alright. So, in the meantime, get that highlight on here. And I'm hitting the bottom of it, because that's where the light would hit. Just kind of progressively lighten it as I go around. There we go. Still gotta do a little bit of cleanup on the top there, which is going to be our base color, there, Mornfang. Just a little bit. I got a little excited painting that rivet. And I think I lost it one other place. A little bit right here. Okay. And before I forget, let's go and patch up the bits of armor that I went and painted brown. Alright, so we've got the knee cop. We've got the... Where was it? There it is, inside of the shoulder pauldron. Shoulder pauldron. All pauldrons are for shoulders. And right there. And right there. Okay. He's looking pretty good. Looking pretty good indeed. Okay. Boots. Hit those boots. Thankfully, I'm not having a crisis of conscience with these boots. I feel perfectly happy just making them your typical leather, highlighted leather type of thing. So, first things first, I probably have way too much paint on that brush. I'll go ahead and get the highlight right there. And we'll highlight the edges where the plate is joined to. So highlighting transitions is always good. And then we'll do a thing across where his shoes crease, and then do right on the toe. Same deal on the other side, just got to work around the badger. Crease there. Hit the top. Down the sides. Oof, that's an awkward angle. And in this case, his heel's up, so we should hit that too. And down the sides. A little messy, but probably about the best I'm going to be able to get given the claustrophobic circumstances. Alright. Alright, good stuff. Coming along pretty nicely. Alright, so we have Mr. Badger here. And Mr. Badger should be painted appropriately. So, as I recall from Mr. Badger, I've actually drawn a blank on where the white and black is on a badger. Give me a second, I'll be right back. I'm going to go and Google some badger images. Okay, so after a quick Google search, badgers are actually fairly interesting. So, they actually are only black and white on their faces, and the black strips go over their eyes and end right at their ears. And the white goes right down the center of their head and right along their cheeks. However, once you get to the right to the neck of the badger, it all kind of blends into sort of this uniform salt and pepper type of thing. So you get kind of more of a grayish thing back here. So what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead, first things first, and I'm going to just kind of try to get that coat to be a bit more salt and peppery. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go back to my good old friend, Mr. Dry Brush, and I'm going to be using, might either use Administratum or Eschen. So when in doubt, you always want to go with the color that you're least going to regret. So since I'm dry brushing up from a dark color, I'm going to take a bit of the Eschen. So, Eschen is very dark. It's actually darker than you'd think just by looking at it. Fingerprint test. Good stuff. So, let's go ahead and hit this guy. This will smooth up any inconsistencies that you get just from the black Templar. It's already starting to look better. But still very, very dark. So now that I know it's safe, I'll go up to Administratum. Now, we get to the interesting situation where we have to clean our dry brush out, which means it makes it wet, which means it's no longer dry. So, if I can get it dry enough, because what we don't want to do is actually just start, instead of dry brushing, painting with really watered down paint. And that is the risk that happens. Boy, this brush is... Whew, it's in rough condition. That's what happens with dry brushes, though. They're basically the conscripts, the 40k guardsmen conscripts. They have the thankless, messy duty with a high mortality rate, but it must be done, and they do it, well, they do it with honor and vigor, at least when the commissar is watching. Alright, what do we got here? Yeah, and you'll be able to tell if your brush is too wet, because instead of dry brushing, you'll start to actually paint the recesses of your fingerprints. But that looks about right there, so I think we're good to go over it. So maybe a bit more. Yeah, man, you see it pop up so quick. So quick. Be real careful with this really light contrast, but man, it really works. Really works well. There we go. We just keep brushing in the same direction so that we keep the illusion of fur. We brush in the same direction when we can. And there isn't a big old pair of cowboy boots in the way. Alright, good. Don't want to overdo it. Alright, so let's see about getting that face. So I'm actually going to be painting the white on and not painting the black on. So that means, and the white is a really brilliant, however, I don't want to go straight to this because this is like fluorescent sunshine white. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with, let's see, I've got this stuff. This is ceramite white. It's not quite so brilliant as you can see. That might be a good place to start. But actually I'm thinking, again, following the idea that better to be as conservative as possible, I'm actually going to start with this, and then I'll highlight it with that. And this might seem like a lot of effort to go for painting a badger on a base, but I think, I have a feeling at least, that this badger is going to be far more important than we think it will. Because you never want to underestimate the cute mascot. Alright, so first things first, straight down the forehead, back to the back of the skull. So from the nose, and it's gonna be pretty wide here. And then we'll go from the nose down the cheeks. And it's going to kind of wind up going underneath. Looks like, before it kind of peters out right about there. this side. Except I'm painting in the other direction, so way more likely I'll mess something up. So let's just be a little more. There we go. And he's kind of tilting his head, so a lot of that white would get lost right about there. And then this kind of is going to go a little bit further back, I think. Right about there. Okay. That's not bad. And actually, I am not even going to highlight that because I think that that is actually a better look right there. Kind of have that. Yeah, no, I like that. I think you get plenty of contrast between the black and that. No need to worry. And I'm actually gonna blunt that point a little bit. All right, there we go. Got ourselves a badger. All right, I think we're pretty much done. Oh, you know what? There is one more step. First off, I need to go ahead and re-ink that little section of the cuirass that I had to go repair. So let me go do that before I forget about it. There we go, no oil. I'll just hit the whole thing. All right. And then, most importantly, let's see here. I'm gonna want we've got brown. So let's go and do let's get some of this. So this is it's basically a brown very similar to the Mournfang, but it's a slightly different, a couple things. It's first off a slightly different shade, so it won't look exactly like the belt. But it's also not a base paint. It's more of a layer type paint, which means it's going to flow a little bit easier, which means it's going to work better for what I want to do with it. Of course, I have to be able to get it open first. Oh, come on, you. There we go. Woof, made me fight for that. These privateer press bottles, man, they do not mess around. So this, we're going to get some of that. A little bit of water here, make sure that I need to get as fine a point as I can manage. That's pretty good. Alright, so here we go. Let's see if I can pull this off. Because Buford being so proud of this belt would of course have his big old letter B right on it. And that's not terrible. I gotta say, I've done worse freestyling there. I've done a little bit better. It's not my strong point. And you're not going to be able to see it from far away, but it's okay. You and I will both know that Buford has a giant B on his belt buckle. And really, I think that's the way that Buford would want it. Totally worth almost giving myself a hand cramp opening this paint pot. Alright. Alright, so last we've got is the base. So, as far as this base goes, we don't have a lot of guidance here because there's nothing on texture, it's just a plain base. So that kind of gives us a lot of freedom. We can kind of do what we want. So, in that case, let's go ahead and sort of have Buford be on the side of the road. I kind of like that. He's kind of talking to somebody, the side of the road. Maybe the road runs through his farm. This friendly little badger guy right here. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and kind of halvesy this base. We'll have sort of gravel on one side, kind of like he's at like a track, and we can put grass on the other side. So let's go ahead and figure out where we want that dividing line to be. So gravel, we'll go ahead and base gravel there. And grass, we'll go ahead and base the grass with a green so it becomes pretty clear. This green might work, but what are you? You are wilderness green. Well, geez, wilderness green. Hard to go wrong with that. Let's do it. Alright, so let's start with this. So let me pop you off the handle here. That handle back here. So I kind of like the idea. I think that badger would much prefer to run around the grass than on rough gravel. So we'll put the grass on the badger side. So we'll figure we'll just kind of have this grass growing right around here. Get under that little badger tail. There we go. A little bit back here, gotta get in. This is actually a really pretty green when it goes on over a light base coat. So again, this is clearly not a base paint, this is a layer paint. You can tell because it's very thin, I'm not even watering it down at all. It comes right out of the bottle like that. And it is going on, letting some of that undercoat shine through. So this is a very good layer paint, but not very good for just kind of going over in one pass. So I might have to go touch this up later. And by might, I mean I am most certainly going to have to touch this up later. But that's okay, I'll do a second coat on it in a bit. So put you down, clean you off, and now we have to do the road, the gravel road. So, take some of that. I take a fair bit of it actually. Just kind of plop it down there. And normally I would thin this out a bit, but I'm just painting the base here, so I don't particularly care if this kind of goops on. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and just use this brush here. Oh yeah, much easier. I'm not really too worried about getting that line so exact. And the reason why will become apparent in a minute here. I do however need to cover, and I seem to have run out of paint on my palette. Come on, finish it off before we have to. There we go. Okay, perfect. So, oh, you know what? I forgot to paint Buford's eyes in there. Oh. Best take care of it. Won't do without having our palette and be able to see anything. First, just touch that up. In particular, I'm kind of focusing on the edges here. There we go. Alrighty, so Buford looks like he runs with, take a look at Bryn's picture over here. Now he's kind of got like a hazel kind of thing going on. So, hazel-wise, I could probably do this. That would probably work. Alright, let's try it. So, a little bit of this. And if ever there was a time where a fine point was critical, it would be now. Alright, that's pretty good. Here goes. Okay. There we go. It's probably a little bit lighter than I needed to do it, but I kind of like that. It kind of makes it look like his eyes are kind of glowing with the light of Yoma Day. So, I like it. I think I'll keep it. Ooh. And I could try and paint some pupils in there too, but I'm not going to do that, because I don't want to. Alrighty. So, you wonder why what my nefarious plan is. And my nefarious plan is I am going to flock that base. So I'm going to be putting glue down on the brown side, dipping the model in this, and then I'm going to be putting glue down on the green side. And I have some, I have it around here somewhere. Hang on. Got it. Some of this. So we can actually have Buford standing on the side of a road. They're looking pretty good, and his badger is going to be kind of hunkered down in the grass right there. So that'll look real pretty. But I've got to wait for that base paint to dry first. So I'll be right back after it dries. Alright, so that paint is about dry now. Incidentally, when I was going and getting my stuff together, look what I happened to come across. My mysteriously missing bottle of flesh wash. Glad I didn't completely lose this, or lose my mind looking for it. But now I've got some backup flesh wash in case I need it. So, yay! Buying redundancies. It's all part of the hobby, I'm sure. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get some gravel on this guy. So, I'm just going to be using some plain old Elmer's white glue here. So, just, woo! Okay, let's go ahead and shake that up a bit more. It's kind of weird and watery. Alright, let's see if that's any better. There we go. Jeez, that was like a freaking ketchup bottle that was sitting in your fridge for too long. Alright. So, I'm going to use a brush I don't care too much about, which will be ye old. As you can see, it is a brush that is so cheap they don't actually have a name on it anywhere. It's got a nice floppy point, but that's fine. Perfect for soaking up glue. So we'll get some of that. Get our friend Buford here, and we're just going to hit the brown side. I'm not going to go and get that green just yet. Of course, you know, might actually wind up with some glue on the green side. Might get some gravel in the grass. Might get some grass growing out of the gravel. And you know what? That just kind of happens. So, happens in life. I'm not going to worry about it happening on the model. Okay, good stuff there. Brush in the water, because even though it is a cheap brush, I would like to not, you know, completely destroy it. And into the gravel we go. Knock the excess off. Got a little bit on the edge there. Just brush that off with your finger. And boom. That's the roadside. So take this away. Put the lid back on it. Never want to put this to the side without putting the lid back on it, because all you've got to do is sneeze once or pick it up when you thought the lid was on it and have that happen. And yeah, flock can make a mess, an absolute mess of things. Ugh. Oh boy. Alright, give me a second, I'll be right back. Okay, one slight cleanup disaster later, and we're back in business. So, this having been wet now, we can actually see the type of point that this brush would hold. And you know, that looks okay, right? It's got a point, it is recognizable as a point, but if we're going to compare these things side by side, we can actually see that there's no comparison whatsoever. There's a reason why I can paint Buford's eyeballs with this thing, and this thing I use for glue. So consider that when you're thinking about comparing the benefits of a cheap brush to a good brush. You want to make sure you can get that point. So, brushing the excess flocky bits out of here. Back in the glue we go. And this time, we're going to have to paint around a badger. That's okay, I'm sure he won't put up too much of a fuss. Who am I kidding? Badgers are notoriously fussy animals. It's okay though, because even though they're kind of small, they put up such a fuss, you get away with it, because bigger animals tend to just kind of decide it's just not worth it. For anyone who's worked retail, I'm sure you can relate. There are plenty of customers that are kind of like badgers. They show up and they make a lot of show and a lot of noise. But you know what? You just kind of get them out of the way, you humor them. And that way you can go on with your life. Maybe this badger's different though. He's hanging out with Buford. He's probably pretty chill. Alright. So, into the flocking grass we go. And I'm gonna just grab a little bit of it here. Just kind of sprinkle it in that little section there. Shake the excess off. Wipe around the outside with my thumb. And there we go. Mr. Badger is kind of sitting, nestling in the grass there. Next to Buford, side of the road, saying howdy to somebody. And of course he's talking on the side of the road because he wouldn't be so rude as to block off the main roadway while having a conversation. Because Buford's a kind, upstanding kind of guy. Alrighty. Alright, so let's go ahead and put this lid back on. There we go. There we go. be extra doubly sure there. Alright, well, I'm going to call him done right there. There's Buford. Alright, good stuff. Well, thank you all for watching, and we'll go on for our next batch, and I think next up we'll go ahead and get our resident halfling cleric. That'll be the next project. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching.